Hello, everyone. This is another Black Conservative. I am Ryan Bowling. Thank you all for joining me once again. As you all know about the horrible terrorist attacks that was initiated by the extremist radical terrorist group known as Hamas, where they initiated thousands of rockets, I believe, against the Jews and just slaughtered a lot of people. Okay, we already know about that. I'm not going to even go over the details of the horrors of what have taken place there. But I will say this is that when this happened, when I heard that this happened, the first thing came to my mind was the radical Marxist groups would begin to infiltrate other protesters that are that are more pro-Palestine. They would begin to infiltrate these groups and push this destruction of Israel. I just knew, I felt it. Okay. Now, before I go any further detail with this, I want to say first and foremost, my heart and prayers go out to the victims on both sides, victims among the Palestinians and victims among the Israelites. My prayers go out to them. I pray that this war will end, and I personally believe that it will, and this is my personal belief, that this will end when Jesus Christ comes back and sets up his 1,000-year rule, literally physically set up his 1,000-year rule here on earth. We won't have any more of this warring anymore, okay? But what I want to talk about here in this video is I want to read a portion of an article that states that Black Lives Matter is in solidarity with the Hamas. They support this and have been supporting the terrorist group Hamas and others for quite some time, other terrorist groups for quite some time. This is no surprise to me. I knew they were going to do this. But let's get right into this article and let's hear exactly what they have to say. Why they're in solidarity for this extremist radical Islamic group. Why they in solidarity for this group. Let's read and find out. It is no surprise to me, none whatsoever. But the article begins with Black Lives Matter grassroots organization shows support for the Palestinian militant group Hamas on Tuesday as the terrorist group launched the deadliest attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust. Black Lives Matter grassroots, which represents 26 local BLM chapters across the country, issued a lengthy statement, quote, in solidarity with the Palestinian people. This, as I said, is no surprise to me. But let's go on. Hamas launched a terror attack on Israel from Gaza over the weekend on the Jewish holiday, of which was the final day of the annual High Holy Day cycle. The attack has resulted in over 900 deaths and at least 2,500 wounded, according to the latest reports. At least 11 Americans were also killed during the violent terror attacks. The statement references the violent attacks on Israel as an understandable, quote, desperate act of self-defense. Let's see what they have to say about this now. As the world is faced with deep questions about self-determination, as well as all desire and pray for the world of peace, we must stand unwaveringly on the side of the oppressed, the statement read. When a people have been subject to decades of apartheid and unimaginable violence, their resistance must not be condemned, but understood as a desperate act of self-defense. And that sounds just like a Marxist group. How do Marxists think? Marxists think of the oppressed and the oppressor. They don't look at individual responsibility. It's always the oppressed and the oppressor. In this instance, of all groups, the oppressor is Israel. The oppressed is Palestinians. Now, I'm not siding on either one, but I'm not taking sides on either one, but I'm not going to do that on this video, okay? But I will say this. If this attack was not provoked by Israel in any shape, form, or way, and if, in fact, this attack was initiated and provoked by Hamas, and that's what it seems to be, okay? That's what seems to be the situation if it was provoked by them. This in no way justifies killing innocent people, number one. But number two, this also shows the lack of compassion and care and understanding from a group that has hated the nation of Israel for quite some time. We have to take this in consideration here. This is not something that we can just look over and act like it never happened. But what this also shows too is that Hamas does not, this terrorist group Hamas does not represent all Palestinians, the regular Palestinians. I know this personally because there was a particular Arab employee where I work at right now, and he's Muslim, and he's an Arab, and he's Muslim, and he shared with me that sometimes the Israeli soldiers would come in and they would beat up on Palestinians, and they would cause all kinds of acts of violence. This is what he was personally seeing when he was there, okay? And I shared with him, I don't want to get into all of the details of this, and I shared with him, it's this situation with the Israeli soldiers and the Zionist political group, okay? These people do not represent the Jewish nation per se. That's what I'm going to say right there, because this video might get deleted. But the Zionists do not represent the Jewish nation as a whole. They are apostates who are about globalism and power and control. The Hamas, which is an extreme terrorist group, does not represent all Palestinians. It's about power and control. When these wars are initiated by both sides, it's not about the people. The regular Palestinians and the regular Jews are minding their own business. They're not trying to kill one another. The hate that may be stirred up in their hearts is from the government, the Zionist government for the Jews and the Palestinian government for the Palestinians. Okay? That's what it is. It's the governments who are all about control and power. That's what there's there. And so when we have these wars taking place, either there in Palestine or Israel, or whether it's in America or wherever else, it's always the people in the political realm that initiate these wars and stir up hate and envy and bitterness against other groups. It's the power brokers that start this stuff. It's the people in power that initiate these wars. That's why, and you guys can go to the rest of that. I'm going to stop right there on reading that article right there, because we could read a little bit more. But you can go to the description box below and read the rest of that article. But it's pretty straightforward. Black Lives Matter is in support of these people, okay? Which is no surprise to me, but I'm going to get back to that in a minute. It's the people in power and control that initiate wars, okay? In America, America has oftentimes been blamed for going in other countries and causing destabilization, which is what Black Lives Matter, this Black Lives Matter group talks about, which they're partly right about. But they're partly right that America have gone into places and have destabilized those countries and set up a central bank. They're partly right about that. But here's my argument on that. America is not the problem, even though people associate these kind of acts of colonization in these countries and so forth as something American. My argument is this. Most Americans, the regulars, okay, like you and I, are not thinking about any of that. We're not thinking about infiltrating any countries. We're not thinking about putting a central bank in these countries. We're not thinking about any of that, okay? Most people in America, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, left or right, for the most part, they just want their freedoms. They're not thinking about all this kind of stuff. We need to infiltrate this. It's the politicians. It's the lawmakers and the presidents and the bureaucracy that is creating these wars. It's not America. The Constitution does not support it. The Bill of Rights does not support this nonsense. And the Declaration of Independence don't support that nonsense. The founders of this country did not support this warmongering. Warmongering is something that both sides are involved in, both the right and the left, the Democrats and Republicans. And they are financed by corporations which are owned and controlled by the international banking families. I'm not going to name who, But you know what I'm talking about. It goes all the way to the top of the pyramid and then it comes down. That's what that pyramid means on the back of your dollar bill. It's about control and power. Not about being beautiful and nice. It's about control and power. Now let's go back to Black Lives Matter in support of Hamas. They see everything in black and white, the oppressed and the oppressor. That's how they see it. They're not trying to get into this idea of, well, yes, the reality of hundreds of innocent Jews were killed in this situation. They don't care about that, because to them, the Jews are the oppressors. But the problem is, it's not the regular Jews that are the oppressors, boo-boo. It's not. They're not going around killing and stabbing up Palestinians and vice versa. It's the power brokers that's doing so. It's the extremist groups that are doing this. Just like in America. When that situation happened with, what was his name? George Floyd. Okay. Media blew that all up all over the mainstream media, right? They blew that all over, right? Now all of a sudden, okay, so of course you get people who protest, regular protests to bring attention to police brutality. Okay, I get it. But then all of a sudden, Black Lives Matter and Antifa and all these extremist radical groups came out of nowhere and caused riots all over the country. People were killed and beat to death. Businesses burned and, just total destruction. Who was doing this? The radical groups who are controlled and financed and controlled by the upper people are doing this. Not the regulars. Regular people were upset about the George Floyd situation. Regular people were truly, justifiably upset that this police officer may have abused his power, although I have a different view on that. But I'm not going to get into it here, and I digress. They were bothered by that, yes. But they ain't saying, let's go up here and burn up stores that we go to shop. Let's go up here and beat up innocent white people for the most. No, they didn't do that. And if any of them did do that, they were stirred up by the outside groups like Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and other extremist left radical groups to initiate acts of violence. See, it's the extreme groups that are financed by the power brokers and the creators of these groups, who are in turn financed by corporations and think tanks, who are in turn owned and controlled by the international banking families, who want a one world global socialist government. That's the real deal. So when we talk about this nonsense about Black Lives Matter supporting them, it's not a shock to me, because they see things as the oppressed and the oppressor. That's how they see it. You try to convince them otherwise. To argue with them is a useless case. So my conclusion in this video is, I knew that Black Lives Matter would open their mouth up and start saying something about this. I knew they was going to do this. And you're going to see more and more radical leftist groups in support of Hamas. Now, whether or not, like I said, it seems to me that Hamas was the one that initiated this attack. That's what it seems to me. We could talk about the Biden administration supplying the money to Iran, and Iran thus supplying the money to finance Hamas. We could talk about that, but that's already known. That's already known. The point is that what I wanted to point is the fact that I knew a radical group like Black Lives Matter was going to push this. And you're going to see more radical leftist groups pushing this kind of action. You're going to see more and more division being stirred up. And as you see protests across the country, most of those protests will be for Palestine. Why? Because the left see the Palestinians as oppressed, and they see Israel as the oppressor. And in classical Marxist communist thought, the oppressed got to overturn the oppressor by any means necessary. That's what that's about. In order to bring about their communist/socialist or socialist/communist country, you got to destroy the current regime by any means necessary. I saw that coming a mile away. And now I'm seeing the socialist groups for Palestinians. What you mean the socialist groups for socialism is not, look, the Marxists and the socialists do not care about the Palestinians, no more than they care about the Israelis. What they want is a socialist government. Once they get that socialist government, which will merge into a communist government, everybody else, whether they're Palestinians, whether they're Israelis, whether they're Americans, whatever you are, they could care less. They will have you under their complete, absolute control, probably with a microchip in your head, and plug you into a global hive mind system. That's the ultimate goal. Let's quit playing these games, man. Let's quit playing these games. But that's what I wanted to say about that. Look, what do you guys think about Black Lives Matter having their piece in this? What do you think about this? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel. God bless you all. See you again.